Hey everybody, welcome to Film Juice. I'm Mike, and I wanted to talk to you today about a little A24 flick called Funny Papers, which is currently viewable on Prime, and you don't have to pay for it. So if you got a Prime subscription and you like the way it sounds, check it out. Um, it's a non-coming of age story about a teenager who decides to forego all of the high school graduation and college admissions and just wants to be a cartoonist. In his pursuit of this endeavor, he befriends, kind of, a middle-aged man named Wallace. Now, Wallace is probably one of my favorite film characters of recent memory. Wallace is boisterous, unhinged, unstable, and frankly just kind of an asshole to everyone around him because he tends to loathe his past, which I'll get into. Our hero, Robert, gets into some trouble with the law. In doing so, he gets a job at the courthouse where he meets Wallace, who is in trouble for a violent altercation at a pharmacy that we learn the details of much later on. And so Robert gloms on to this unhinged individual, seeking a mentorship that he loses at the beginning of the movie, tragically, when his actual mentor is in a really horrific car accident. So Robert is seeking to fill that gap. It's a gap that can't be filled by his family, who disapprove of him, his decisions, and it can't be filled by his friend, who is kind of aping off of his drawing style. And there are some moments where our protagonist is a genuine brat. And I was thinking this during one of the pivotal moments of the movie, wherein his dad berates him and calls him, a brat, and that everything that he's doing is brat shit. And you just might agree. He's almost an insufferable protagonist, and it's not to the movie's discredit, but it does make the movie feel that much more real. It has realistic outcomes and unrealistic expectations, much in the way that Robert does have unrealistic expectations and suffers through some very real consequences. So he brings Wallace around, he tries to befriend him. Wallace, played by an actor named Matthew Mayer, is just such a catch, and in the one moment of vulnerability, we see Wallace attack people verbally, then later physically, and it's a very sad string of events. Whereas in a normal coming-of-age story, our hero, really, a coming-of-age story doesn't have to be positive. It just needs to show somebody growing to some sort of understanding. So this isn't the classic kind of, I came out of this okay, I came out of it, I'm not unscathed, but the scars are there, and I'm here to learn from them. No. This movie puts our protagonist through the ringer and spits him out, and by the end of the movie, you don't really know what he's going to do, and the movie just does such a great job of reflecting that, and it's a very low budget movie, so I wouldn't say the cinematography is not bad, but the camera work is there where you feel like this is a very, very indie movie. The movie portrays Robert as sympathetic. You want to see him succeed, but you can't help but feel that he's going about it the wrong way. He is somewhat manipulative, he's kind of a liar, whereas Wallace, who is an actual asshole, openly, Wallace is very forthcoming about his thoughts and very blunt and critical. So we see that maybe Daniel, that's the actor's name, we see that maybe Robert is aspiring to be this kind of aloof artist, but he ultimately does recognize the loneliness and the pain of Wallace's situation. We do get a brief hint. We don't learn a whole lot about Wallace's backstory. We kind of learn about where he's at now. But you do get a glimpse wherein Robert's family asks Wallace, so does your family live around here? And he's like, yeah, but I don't talk to them. He says something to the effect of, like, it's not that I can't stand them, I just can't talk to them for other reasons. And the movie never goes beyond that. Wallace is kind of a cipher in the movie, where he's this object that Robert is aspiring to, and it's just bad news. So ultimately, we see Wallace chastise Robert for his drawings and for his style, and he kind of rejects Robert in the most violent way possible, where he just beats the crap out of him on the side of the road. And it's not an uplifting movie. It's got some very good dry humor, some good pacing, some good comic beats, and some good nods to Robert Crumb and all those kind of raunchy adult comics from the 70s. I suppose one of the main character points is that Robert is exceeding his grasp perhaps a bit much in terms of where he wants to be artistically. And when we finally see some of Wallace's work, we see that it's very detailed. It's not a cartoon. It's very much like sketches of comic book panels that he was planning to finish, that he had been working on. And we learn that Wallace is a good artist, and Robert, unfortunately, is taking advantage of that. So our protagonist is not really the protagonist, and the person who should be our hero of the story is a complete schmuck who treats people like crap. So Funny Papers is ultimately a movie about not staying in one's lane, but being able to navigate one's path more carefully and possibly more independently, rather than clinging to some idea unnaturally. There's the unnatural aspect I'm referring to is the non-friendship between Robert and Wallace, where Wallace he doesn't want anything to do with Robert, and Robert is forcing himself onto him. He's trying to force this friendship, or rather this mentorship. And honestly, all that being said, it's a fun 87 minutes. It's a movie that it ends with our protagonist just sitting thinking, and it's probably the way most movies realistically should end, at least in terms of story, where the entire end credits is Robert sitting at the comic book store that he works at, and it's just a long close-up on his face while he's contemplating what exactly he's done, or what he's doing, or what he's going to do. And it leaves us in an uncomfortable place, and I'm a sucker for uncomfortable things. I would recommend this movie if you're into... Gosh, this would be a great double feature with probably Ghost World. Not just because of the comic... the focus on comics, but the focus on someone trying to come of age in the worst way possible. So yeah, I just had to get that out. Some brief thoughts on Funny Papers. Watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. Great characters, even if you don't like them. Run-of-the-mill story, who cares? And ultimately, it didn't feel like a waste of time. And that's usually the most important thing when you come out of a movie. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you very, very soon.